Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Cool, okay, welcome to today's session over here. So as usual, okay, what we're gonna be doing is to give you an overview for the week, okay, then we'll take a look at some of the opportunities to highlight, okay, and then we'll kind of wrap up this session with some simple Q&A to answer a couple of questions that you guys may have. And then after that, I'll update you of the upcoming events that we're gonna have, right? And something very exciting is partnering together with Everything Trading platform. I'll be starting to do a little bit on a live trading session in the afternoon, right? Going into the London market itself. Okay, so I'll update you guys at the end of today's session over here. Good. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look at the events calendar. Okay, very quickly over here, we'll summarize a little bit as to what happened last week. Okay, so last week was pretty eventful. We did have the Bank of Japan coming in, okay, where many actually expected the BOJ to start tightening, or talking a little bit about tightening, or updating in terms of like transition from the YCC policy yield curve into what we call tightening policy. But we didn't really get it, right? That's where we saw the yen at the early part of the week actually weakens. Okay, so that's something to note if you've not been following. And then going into the mid part of the week, we have the FOMC, right? And basically the update of FOMC saw the dollar actually weakening because the Fed actually mentioned that they may not actually hike it, right? Or they may not actually need to hike it another time. But that doesn't mean they'll immediately cut rates. So likely we're gonna see rates maintaining about 5.5%, maybe closer towards the second half of the year, next year, right, in 2024. Okay, and in terms of Bank of England BOE, right, we did see a positive sign. Okay, where you can see the expected was 207, it came out 306. So that's actually a little bit on the bullishness on Bank of England, okay, where there's actually more of them voting for a hike, okay, but of course they did not change it for this time around. But because of the hawkishness, we did see the pound actually strengthen. Okay? And on Friday last week, okay, we kind of have like important data coming from Canadian as well as the US side of things. We did see all the data actually miss the expectation. And of course, what we saw is the dollar actually slide quite a bit post NFP, right? And not surprising because this data here is just not good, right? So moving forward, definitely you want to keep track on how the US economy is likely going to develop. There's a good chance it's not going to be good. And with that, of course, we're likely going to see a little bit more downside for the dollar itself. But at the same time, we also need to keep track on how the Fed is going to update it in terms of their policy moving forward, okay? Now, if you take a look at this week, generally it's a little bit quiet. We do have the RBA coming in tomorrow morning. There's an expectation of a 0.25% hike. We do have a couple of speeches on Wednesday, but I don't think that's like super significant. Okay, and after that, there's nothing much throughout this week. So of course, this week here is likely going to be relatively quiet if you kind of compare it to last week. Okay, so do I expect the market to maybe be a little bit slower in some of the moves, and that builds in quite nice to the way we look at the chart as well, right? Because last week were pretty much impulsive movement from prices, and this week here, if it starts to build into a corrective move, then going forward, maybe closer towards the end of this week or maybe next week, that's where a lot of setups are gonna get ready, right? Because of the impulse and correction combination. Okay, good. So with that said, let's jump into the charts over here and kind of update you guys a little bit on what I'm seeing. So we'll start off with the dollar index. Okay, so dollar index, as you can see, this drop here will basically post NFP. And right now we're basically testing the zone around 105.15 to 104.70 area. We're starting to see a little bit of a slow move here, right? Or what we call a crawl. Okay, and if we can get that, then it suggests that at least for the short term, we may see this actually make a retracement back up, right? So short term, tomorrow, if we can continue to see a little bit of a cross structure, I think we can focus on some short-term upside for the dollar itself, primarily just trading the pullback, okay? Or you might hear terms people say, fake the sell move. Basically a short-term trading upside, and if this goes up correctively, then we may see another move back down. Okay, of course, if this goes up sharp, kind of like a V-shaped bounce here, then this opens up a little bit more upside that may even take it to the top over here. Okay, so of course you need to kind of like flow with the market, right? Kind of update in terms of like how the market is developing day to day. So that's going to give you updated information as to the directional bias. Is there any shift and sort of, okay. So that's on the DXY. Of course, if you rotate that to the euro, slightly different in terms of the FIB expectation areas. Euro dollar over here hasn't really tagged the key FIB zone, okay? And of course, I actually like to pay a little bit more attention to euro dollar than the DXY, right? We may not directly trade the dollar index, but the dollar index kind of gives us some clue, okay? If the dollar strengthen for DXY, of course, then some of the major pairs will know how to trade over it. Euro dollar is definitely one of the focus that I have for this week. Okay, so you can see over here we kind of had the dollar weakening, and therefore euro dollar kind of pushed up last Friday. So we are getting close towards this territory around 1.0760 to 1.0820. Okay, so this will build in very nicely with the yellow WXY, right? So you can see it's a three-wave move, 1, 2, 3. And of course, the first W in yellow, we have an internal tree as well. This move here, we don't really see a clear tree wave. But we're still monitoring the area there, right? And of course, with this fast little impulse move, if let's say we give it another maybe 2 days, so going into maybe Wednesday or Thursday, if we can see a crawl pattern development here, then that will be a pretty decent sell trade with a short-term target, back towards maybe somewhere around that 50 and 618, right? But of course, right now it's a little bit too early to kind of project. Okay, but of course, that opens up quite a nice little move, a couple of 100 pips, right? 100 to 200 pips range of profit potential. Okay, so that's what we're likely going to look out for the euro dollar this week. Okay, now if you take a look at GBPUSD, we do quite have a similar structure in a way as well. Okay, so you can see if I kind of put in the channel to guide you a little bit. We do have that structure there as well. Okay, so we're basically testing the zone right now between the 101.6. We do have a little bit of a crawlish structure here as well, but I think it's just too early right now. Anyway, we're just in a Monday move, so likely this would need to take a little bit more time. Giving it maybe another 2 days. If you can get that, then of course this is again a sell trade potential, right? Short term. So to me, I think euro dollar may be a little bit cleaner as compared to the pound, simply because the Bank of England is hawkish last week. Okay, so selling into the pound may not be as, I would say, aligned from a fundamental perspective as compared to maybe the euro dollar itself. Okay, so I'm actually more inclined to the euro in terms of a sell trade potential short term compared to the pound, right? So pound a bit more on the neutral side of things for now. Okay, and then we have the Aussie. Now Aussie was a very nice little move to the upside. And of course that also translates to the equities market, right? Like S&P, NASDAQ actually all rallied quite significantly because of the pivot from the Fed, right? Where people are expecting it to hike it another time, but last week's update from FOMC, the Fed were pretty dovish, okay, and basically that turns the market sentiment a little bit more towards risk on, and that's what we are seeing, right? risk currencies are rallying, like Aussie dollar as well as the equity side of things. Okay, so I'm definitely bullish on Aussie dollar. If I bring you to the higher time frame perspective, okay, a little bit cluttered, but you can see that on a daily scale, okay, we kind of bounce off certain areas here, which is pretty significant. We have this little crawl. This is very obvious an impulse move. And if we can continue to get a bit of correction, and I want you to see the upside potential is just great. Okay, so for me, Aussie dollar is definitely gonna be a key pair to keep an eye on, not only for this week and next week, but of course moving forward. If the patterns and price developments are gonna be in confluence, okay, and in alignment of what we are looking at, I think Aussie dollar has massive upside potential. Okay, so right now what I'm seeing is a very simple 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're likely gonna see wave 4 develop this week. Okay, and we can get that. And of course, short term we can still get another bounce back to complete the 5 wave, and after which we may see a bigger correction before the next move up. Okay, but for this week, there's a good chance wave 4 would likely develop, and maybe closer towards end of this week, like Thursday or Friday. That's where we're gonna have potentially a buy setup. Okay, so I say potentially because it really depends on how price is gonna develop for at least the first half of this entire week. Okay, so that's on Aussie. Then we have dollar Canadian. So dollar Canadian had a nice little move after this crawl here. So this massive sell off is great, right? That's an impulse move to the downside. Okay, now if you have a sell, right, can't manage to catch it somewhere there. If you have a sell, just troll it. I would say you can even consider go down to the lower time frame and even troll it, right? Looking at this development here, I would say the update, depending on how aggressive in your trading stops, a good area to consider shift stops to troll is somewhere around 1.3710, right? Just somewhere around that high. Okay, oftentimes after a significant move like that, the market would do some kind of a pullback. Okay, so if you are in a sell, just manage it. Kind of like try to protect as much profit as you can. If you're not in the sell, then wait for the pullback. Okay, and you don't want to rush things through, right? I just want to show you from a higher time frame perspective. We have still massive downside if this is gonna get moving lower. Okay, are we gonna see potentially price coming back all the way to this previous low? It's still hard to say for now. Okay, but I just want to highlight to you that there's no need to rush things through. Okay, you don't need to be like afraid that, oh, the move is done and then you just want to catch the last final leg of it. Always wait for the proper setup to come to you, right? So over here, you always want to wait for a corrective setup. Okay, before you kind of take the sell trade to the downside. Okay, so the direction is quite clear. You basically just need to wait for the setup to come to you, and then you get a sell trade to the downside. Okay, now another one I'm keeping a close watch is definitely the dollar yen. Okay, so that was the BOJ. Then after that we get the NFP. Okay, so we are seeing a little bit of a V shape in the dollar yen, and basically I'm waiting for a 3-wave pullback. If I can get that, I would definitely be very interested in the sell side, because again, I've highlighted this a couple of times. The dollar yen is essentially in a key area that you want to focus on the massive downside potential. Okay, so for me, at where we are right now, any sell trade setup that I get is something that I'll definitely pay very close attention to. Okay, and that's something I just want to highlight on, right? So dollar yen is definitely a pair to pay close attention. Gold, I think gold here, you probably do not want to spend too much time and focus onto it for the week. Okay, there's a good possibility we're going to see another pushback up to complete that crawlish structure. Okay, and short term we may see a more meaningful and deeper pullback before the next rally up. So I think this week on gold, probably not going to be having much things The only thing here you probably want to keep watch is maybe closer to its like Friday. If you can get a push up and then a crawl here, that may actually start to set up, kind of like a short-term sell trade to the downside maybe next week. Okay. The other potential development, if this is not a crawl, then this would likely continue to develop something like that. Then that would then turn into a flag. Then of course we'll be looking for a buy trade set up there, right? So it really depends on how the market's going to develop going forward. If you get a crawl to the upside, we'll look for a sell maybe next week. If this continues to develop as a correction down, then of course we'll look for the buy instead. Okay, so we'll just give it time, see how the market is going to develop, then we come back when things are a little bit clearer. Okay, so again, there's no need to rush things through, right? We always just need to sometimes just be patient, give the market some time to develop, right, to gain that clarity, and then from there we'll be able to make a better decision. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's on the gold trade. Okay, gold setup. S&P. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you managed to catch it. I personally did not. I would say I do not trade. Okay, the S&P, right? Because for me, equities and indexes is always more of a long-term thing. But last week was a pretty nice little crawl setup over here. Again, confluence with the channel structure, okay, and very nice little reaction. The only thing that I think is a little bit challenging to catch this entire move last week is because unless you were being aggressive in that breakout and you managed to catch it, if you're a little bit more conservative in your entry and you're waiting for the breakout, there wasn't much of a meaningful pullback. Okay, so again, sometimes it's worth to be a little bit more aggressive in your entry, okay, because sometimes the market just really do a V. But if you're not in, of course, don't try and catch the buy there, okay, because your risk to reward ratio is just not going to be beneficial. You always want to wait for the pullback. Okay, so if you're not in that buy, just wait for pullback. But I think equities here has upside potential, right? You can see where we come from. Okay, so this entire correction may have completed, and therefore this may start to build the upside. Okay. Pound yen is another one that's very decent. Okay, a little bit on the a little bit on the calf light. We managed to catch this, okay, but I trailed my stop and we kind of got tagged out here, right? Kind of a little bit of like wasted, but it is what it is, right? I think there's still a little bit more upside if you can get a corrective pullback here. Short term, you can still see one more push with a target around 186.5. But you need to then assess, in terms of like the risk to reward ratio. If you take this trade, is it something that's worthwhile to you? Okay. But this would then complete the yellow WXY. Then after which, we'll likely look for a short-term pullback before maybe the next move. Okay. So yeah, this week here, I think pound yen may have something closer towards the second half of the week. If this develops a crawl, we'll look for the sell short term. Okay. If this develops into a correction here, depending on the risk reward, depending on context of how it's going to develop, we may consider one more move up. Okay. Yeah, so this is again, really depending on how the price is going to develop, and then we'll adapt according to what the market develops and what price is telling us. Okay. Then we have Euro Pound. Euro Pound is currently testing around this area, which is basically a fib level of a potential expanding flat. Okay. I'm still leaning a little bit more towards an expanding flat. The other projection is this can be a wave 5. Okay, and this can be the start of a down move, right? So basically, if you take a look from this scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. One of our traders actually put in the analysis of this as a 5-wave up. Okay. Again, we won't know who's right or wrong, and we don't need to be right or wrong, right? We just need to flow and adapt to what the market is telling us. For me, my projection is still bullish because I'm basically looking at, okay, the market is putting it outside. Okay, even if this is a 5 wave here, this can simply be a ABC and then still push back. Okay, which doesn't matter if I'm labeling this as a ABC or this is a wave 5 and then this is a ABC. You realize that what's more important is understanding the patterns and understanding, which direction you want to focus and have a clear setup in mind in terms of how you execute it, right? Because how I label it, sometimes it's just a label, it's just an annotation to communicate an idea, right? So to me right now, I'm a little bit inclined to look at upside until I'm proven otherwise, right? What I mean by that is, of course, if the market starts to do a correction here, then there's absolutely no reason to be buying it, right? You would rather look to sell. Then that would kind of give a high probability that, okay, this may be the top of it, this may be wave 5, and this may be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or starting to move to the downside. But if here we start to see a crawl, then that would give me the idea that, okay, this is indeed a pullback, okay, and we can see a little bit more upside breaking that high. Okay, so it really depends on how the market is developed, right? You can always go down to the lower time frame. You can even see this as a potential double bottom structure. We have a divergence. Okay, so again, if you're aggressive, that will be the entry of a breakout to the upside. If you're a little bit more conservative, you may want to wait for this to come back down to give you that 1, 2, 3, and then your breakout can be adjusted a little bit lower. Okay, so yeah, depending on the setup that you're trading, right? Yeah, so that's on Euro Pound. Okay, I don't really trade Euro Pound because I don't like the characteristics of this pair. It's just very, very rangy kind of feel. Okay, but I know some of you actually trades it, right? So that's my view, right? That's my analysis on that. Okay, also hopefully you can give you an idea of it as well. Okay, nothing really much happening there. Okay, Bitcoin here, I'm expecting a short-term move to the downside, right? Now, whether is it gonna come to it this 50% mark, which put us around 31,600. May or may not, okay, but I think the possibility is still there, right? Because that's actually the previous structure area. Now, I think long term is definitely upside, okay, pretty much quite bullish on it, especially after the recent move, right? But I think short term, there is a good chance we'll see a pullback. I mean, the market will never move in one direction all the time, okay? So right now, if you take a look at this here, this is definitely a crawl. Have a little bit of reaction. Okay, ideally we want to see a little bit more downside. After that, if you can see a correction, that would give us a sell for short term. Okay, depending on strategy, whether you want to sell it. Now, to me, I'm not too inclined to sell BTC. Even though the technical seems to suggest that, right? I'll always wait for a buy. Okay, so that's my strategy. That's my personal approach and preference. Okay, some of you do short-term trading in crypto by all means. Okay. Yeah, so that's the direction, and that's what I'm forecasting for BTC this week. Okay, let me just jump to. Do I still have it here? Oh, I think I moved it. Okay, no worries. Yeah, I just wanted to actually show you the analysis on statistically the analysis on halving, but it's just not here. I think I erased it already. Yeah, I think I erased it. Okay, but anyways, just want kind of like keep you update in terms of like if you're not aware of crypto halving or BTC halving, it's happening next year around April. Okay, and if you track back like 4 years ago when the previous halving was done, prior to the halving, okay, the market actually made a pretty significant pullback first to the downside. Okay, and then when the halving happens, it starts to rally again. Okay, so that's some statistics that will probably give you an extra edge in understanding, right? So from now until April next year, if Bitcoin actually made a pretty significant pullback, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so that's something to just keep you updated. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So with that, generally, I think kind of covered overall some of these popular assets, I would say. Okay. Yeah. So again, this week here, the first half of the week, my take is you probably need to be patient. Observe how the price is developing. What's the pattern? Then some of those will gain clearer direction and trade maybe closer towards the second half of this week. Okay, and it's part of it because last week we get quite a bit of impulse move, so the earlier part of this week will probably need to just be patient, right? For it to develop into a pattern and then wait for the setup to come to us, and then on Thursday and Friday, probably that's where most of the trades are going to be happening. Okay. Okay, very quickly, I'm gonna update you. Just now I mentioned a little bit about the live trading in the UK session, right? So very quickly, okay. Today's market outlook session, we call it weekly market outlook, right? It's actually sponsored by Everything Trading. Okay. So over here, if you have, you probably won't know, right? Because we didn't really share much of this. But they actually have a portal. Okay, you just need to Google everythingtrading.com. Okay, and let me just see if I can log out. Okay, yeah, you. I think that's how it lands. Okay, let me just. Okay, so if you Google everything trading, you can see here, right? Everythingtrading.com. If you click onto that, okay, you come to this page. Okay, now of course, if you scroll to the bottom, you can get some information about what it is and things like that. And then you realize that hey, there's actually the free SS. Okay, and then of course, if you actually have a broker account with Zenfinix or Torex, you'll be able to get additional SS as well. Okay, and of course, if you do not want and then you just want to pay for it, then that's the option. Okay, but right now we are running a kind of like a promotional period where you can actually just get access for free, right? So you basically just sign up for your account. Okay, so if you are new, just click join or sign up here. It's basically free, right? And then once you log in, so very quickly I'll just show you once you log in. Okay, this is where you're gonna get your dashboard, right? Because that's my account. And then in the dashboard over here, you'll be able to see the upcoming live training session. Okay, so this Thursday, 4 p.m. Malaysia time, of course, depending on where you guys are, right? Some of you are not based in Malaysia, you just need to adjust your time accordingly. But in terms of the UK, it's basically 8 a.m., which is the London market opens, right? So we'll be having about an hour of live trading session. Okay, so basically, I'll be quite similar to today, right? It's just that I'm gonna go in a little bit more in the details of the execution aspect. Okay, sharing with you, if there's a trade setup, how we're gonna take it. Okay, how we're gonna do a little bit of the risk management, position sizing, and things like that. Okay, it's about an hour long, right? I believe there is a feature when you join, you can also ask question. Okay, so it's pretty interactive at the same time as well. Then moving forward, tentatively right now, for my slot, they're planning every Tuesday and Wednesday in the London session itself. Okay, just very quick, if you, I know that some of you are not able to make it during that time, depending on which region you're in. Okay, you can actually go to the left here and you can see, right, join live trading. There are different traders over here as well. I think a news channel would probably be also in the London session. Okay, right now of course there isn't anything. But you can also look out for that news channel, right? I think some of you may have joined in last week's session. Daniel did a live trade on NFT. Okay, last Friday. Okay. Yeah. So just want to quickly share with you this. All you need to do is just go over to the website, everythingtrading.com, and then register for an account. Okay, and then you'll be able to join me this coming Thursday. Okay. Good. Yeah, so if you need any support, in terms of like guidance of how to set up your account and things like that, or if you have any other questions, if you're watching right now on YouTube, okay, you'll be able to just scroll down to the description. Okay, there's actually a WhatsApp link. If you click onto that, it'll direct you to the team's WhatsApp. You can actually ask any questions. You'll be able to support you, right? Okay, quick few questions I see. What's the analysis on Aussie New Zealand? Aussie New Zealand. Okay, my take is this is a crawl pattern. We have our first drop. If you can get a correction here, we are expecting one more drop, right, to kind of complete that 1, 2, 3. Okay. In terms of the areas that potentially you can keep a lookout for, potentially somewhere around the 50% mark, right, which kind of put you something there. Okay. Yeah, so that's the take on Aussie New Zealand. If we can get a correction here, we can expect one more drop to complete the 3-wave structure, right? WXY or 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so that's my take on Aussie New Zealand. Okay, FTSE. Okay, FTSE over here, we have a little bit of a bounce. Yeah, I think the pattern here is 1, 2, 3, right? So we kind of have a bounce here. Not as significant as the US market, but the take here is still a pretty significant bounce. So my take is, if you can get a correction, definitely upside. Okay, as long as price is able to maintain above that low. Yeah, that will be the take. Okay, so if you can get a correction, maybe closer towards, again, Thursday and Friday, that would definitely be an upside opportunity for FTSE. Okay, so bullish on it. Okay. I think generally index are like that. Okay. So the Aussie here as well. I mean, this is quite similar to the S&P. Okay, we have that little push up. So again, any correction here, you definitely want to look for the upside, right? So direction wise, I think the equities index are quite clear. Definitely you want to focus on the upside. Okay, and of course you can combine it with a little bit of a breakout of this structure here, right? Yeah. So index, I think generally all index are rallying. Okay, because again, you're talking about risk sentiment, right? Yeah. Even the Hong Kong and the China market is basically rallying. Okay, so equities focus on the upside. You just need to wait for a setup and then you can look for the buy trade. Oh. Okay, so yeah, generally that's from me. I hope it's clear and helpful. Okay, yeah. So with that, okay, those of you who have yet to register for your Everything Trading account, do register so that you can join in for this Thursday live trading. If you can't make it this Thursday, next week we do have a couple of sessions as well, not only from me, okay, but from some other traders who are doing their live trading session as well. Okay, so if you register into it, you'll be able to look at the sessions, the upcoming sessions in your dashboard as well. Okay, so that's all from me. All the best to your trading this week, okay, and we'll see you guys in the next one, okay? See you guys, bye bye.